The Chilean Supreme Court has rejected the application submitted for the amparo of the Mapuche leader Machi Leader. Spanish health authorities have reported the highest number of new COVID-19 cases since the country's lockdown ended. Palestinian authorities have rejected a deal between Israel and the United Arab Emirates to normalize relations. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Laura Palmero. The Chilean Supreme Court has rejected the application submitted for the amparo of the Mapuche leader Machi Leader that claims the violation of human rights. The second chamber of the court rejected the application and maintains his 18-year sentence for the long-standing Machi case. The Mapuche spiritual leader requested house arrest under humanitarian precepts established by the ILO, as well as to release of Mapuche political prisoners. The resolution follows 102 days in hunger strike from the Machi. In Bolivia, members of the Unity Pact have rejected the recent agreement promoted between the legislature and the electoral branch, which establishes a new date for presidential elections, now scheduled for next October 18th.
The Bolivian Central Union and the Unity Pact, we are strongly disappointed, frustrated by this agreement that has been made under the table between the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the electoral branches. All three Spanish bodies have conferred all three organs blockade of our Bolivian workers' center. Of the Unity Pact and that frustration, we will determine the road that will be made from now on. Thank you very much.
The Bolivian Workers' Federation and the Unity Pact has never betrayed and will never betray its people. Today we have suffered a betrayal, and that the people must know. They mobilized. This law that has never agreed with us, that there has never been consensus with the Bolivian people. This agreement that we have never taken into account beyond the meetings we have attended. Between nations' unity and the Catholic Church, we have not been part.
The senator for the Mas, Milton Barron, insisted that the new date of elections is immovable because of being agreed with the different authorities of the country.
What do the Bolivian people want? Elections now, with a definite date. We don't want to be told tomorrow that due to the pandemic or the highest peak, we are changing to another date. So within the law, a date has been already set. We are putting the parameter until October 18, so that elections can be called, but with a final date. Whatever the date the electoral body puts, that day has to take place the election. Even if it rains, the sky falls, or an earthquake, that day the elections has to be held.
Health workers protested in Peru on Thursday to demand improvements to their pay and conditions in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. Health workers' unions organized a rally in front of the Ministry of Health while calling on Peruvian authorities to address their demands. Unions are demanding that all healthcare personnel, not only those in critical areas, receive a support package of $205 per month. Meanwhile, Peruvian authorities have reported over 489,000 COVID-19 cases and more than 21,000 deaths since the outbreak of the pandemic.
We estimate around 70 to 100 health worker deaths. That's another thing we asked the government to say how many people from the armed forces, police, and health workers from all those who are at the front of the battle have.
Cuban health authorities presented an update on the COVID-19 figures this Thursday.
With the analysis of these 4,591 samples, 46 people tested positive for COVID-19. 46 people in which SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19 were detected. And with this behavior of testing and results, 314,499 tests have been carried out, and 3,174 people have been diagnosed with COVID-19.
Lastly, Dr. Duran confirmed the death of one person from COVID-19 in the last 24 hours.
Unfortunately, one patient has died yesterday from the disease. To date, Cuba reports 89 deaths. The country's mortality rate is 2.8%.
On Thursday, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced the suspension of private charter flights between the United States and Cuba starting in October. According to a statement, the decision will affect all charter flights under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Department of Transportation, except for authorized public charter flights to and from Havana. Unauthorized private charter flights for emergency medical purposes, search and rescue activities, and other travel deemed in the interest of the United States. Meanwhile, family visits to Cuba have been heavily impacted under the Trump administration, which banned commercial flights to all Cuban airports except Havana late last year before imposing the same restrictions on charter flights from the U.S. in January. The latest measures aims at tightening the sanctions imposed by the United States against the Cuban people. And we'll be right back after this short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Spanish health authorities reported over 2,900 new COVID-19 cases on Thursday, representing the highest number since the country's lockdown ended, while noting that the Madrid region is the hardest hit area.
In Spain, the number of reported cases continues to rise, both by date of diagnosis and by date of onset of symptoms. But it's true that it's a gentle rise that allows the implementation of control measures in a much more serious and much more controlled way. Madrid is one of those with the more dangerous situation. I think they are cause for attention. We have to act, and they are acting a lot and very well, but the entire population and all the health systems and all of us who work in the health system have to maintain tension.
The governor of the U.S. state of Nevada announced on Thursday that the state had officially reached 1,000 COVID-19 deaths.
Today, it is with great sadness that we must recognize that Nevada has reached the 1,000 death toll for COVID-19. The grief felt by Nevadans for these individuals, these families, these friends, is enormous. The First Lady and I send our condolences to all of the loved ones of the more than 1,000 Nevadans who have lost their life to a disease. And we ask your help to not have any more people die as a result of COVID-19, to do what we can to mitigate this terrible disease.
Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin has stated that progress is being made in Brexit trade talks after meeting with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson for the first time since taking office in June. As the talks are ongoing to try and reach a deal between London and Brussels, neighbouring Ireland, which is a member of the European Union, has expressed concern regarding the impact of border issues with Northern Ireland. The Brexit talks are set to continue until October, but fears are growing that the deal will not reach before the deadline on December 31st.
Say that I think where there's a will, there's a way. It seems to me that there is a landing zone, if that will is there on both sides, and I think it is, on the European Union side and on the British side, to find that landing zone. We both agreed on the absolute necessity for a free trade agreement that would be tariff-free, quota-free, that's the best possible outcome for the European Union, for the United Kingdom.
United Kingdom authorities have added France and the Netherlands to the list of countries from where travellers must undergo a mandatory quarantine period on arrival in the UK, following a recent surge in COVID-19 cases in the two countries.
Well, today, this evening, we're announcing that there will now be quarantine brought in for a number of other locations, now including France, Holland and some others. And that's because we've absolutely worked so hard to make sure that we're keeping our numbers down here, and we can't afford to re-import those cases from elsewhere. People who are in France or indeed Holland or one or two other places that we're announcing this evening who are added to the quarantine list, we're saying to people you can stay and finish your holiday, but you have to be aware you will have to quarantine after that, and that is mandatory I'm afraid, because we do need to protect the lower rates we've managed to establish in this country.
The Prime Minister of Mauritius noted on Thursday that an official investigation has been launched into the devastating oil spill caused by a Japanese cargo ship that ran aground on July 25th.
There is still some oil left in the bilge and other parts of the boat, which they are trying to pump and remove. But let's say the great amount, the majority of the oil has been taken out of the boat. There is an investigation which has already started. We have the officers of the police force, of the Ministry of the Fishery also, who made a descent of the boat to assemble all that can be brought as evidence. There are also interrogations. The crew is made up of about 20 people, including the captain and officers. So at this level, the investigations will be able to determine the causes of this accident, the reasons why the boat came so close to our shores and ran aground, and of course a general mobilization at all levels to continue cleaning up and making sure that the oil can be removed from the sea. The owners of the boat have apologized. There has been and still is damage that has been caused, be it to the environment, to professionals, to fishermen, to boaters and others, and to this part of our country. So again, we need the help of certain experts to guide us and to make any claims. Some of the complaints will already be made and others to follow.
Russian authorities have denounced foreign interference in the internal affairs of Belarus following violent protests orchestrated by Western powers.
We see clear efforts of foreign interference with affairs of the sovereign state in order to split the society and to destabilize the situation. We have seen the use of such methods in other countries. Any attempts to find some Russian footprint in the organization of unrest in the country are groundless. These trails lead to other directions. We have given relevant facts to the Belarusians, and these facts are in public access. I want to stress that Russia remains a solid ally and friend of Belarus and the Belarusian people.
The trade war between the United States and China has now extended to social media and the internet, which has become the latest battlefield between the two world powers.
Under the alleged interest of protecting American citizens' privacy, Trump's administration is conducting a campaign against the widely used TikTok and WeChat apps, bringing the US-China hostilities to a new level, the world of social networks applications.
I don't understand this ban. They are very popular, very convenient. We basically use them every day.
Trump's ban on WeChat is likely to cause problems for users and businesses dealing with China from the United States. In China, these platforms are used by 72% of the 1.4 billion Chinese population. Here, the WeChat platform is more than a social media app. It is used to buy products, stock investment, travel, and even check the health status of people in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic.
TikTok is very popular among young people, and WeChat is used every day to read books, listen to music, go shopping, watch movies, then to talk to friends now that many are away or working in other places.
China has requested to not politicize issues which are economic. Beijing thinks that the sanctions against these platforms only seek to maintain the monopoly of high technology by the United States, which last year used similar excuses to expel the giant international 5G network Huawei from the United States, pressing its international allies to follow the same path.
Under the excuse of defending national security, the United States frequently abuses its power and unjustly represses non-US companies, which is a clear act of bullying, and China opposed this position firmly.
The United States is used to impose their way of life that goes from fashion to entertainment, always on the rest of the world. Now, Washington sees the advancement of these Chinese platforms as a threat to its national security, the same country that demands the world to be open to Google and Facebook in the name of globalization. This country now closes the doors to TikTok and WeChat.
Irán Peraza, Telesur, Beijing, China.
And we have more news coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Israel and United Arab Emirates announced they had reached an agreement on Thursday to normalize relations. The deal was brokered by the United States, with President Donald Trump taking the credit for facilitating what he called a historical peace agreement, which would see the United Arab Emirates become the third Arab state to have full diplomatic ties with Israel after Egypt and Jordan. A joint statement by the UAE, Israel and the U.S. said the breakthrough would advance peace in the Middle East region. As part of the agreement, Israel agreed to suspend the annexation of parts of the occupied West Bank, at least for now. And the Palestinian National Authority has rejected the agreement, highlighting the move undermines the Arab Peace Initiative and decisions over the Palestinian cause.
The Palestinian leadership announces its strong rejection and condemnation of the surprise American-Israeli Emirati tripartite declaration on a full normalization of relations between the occupying Israeli states and the United Arab Emirates, in exchange of an alleged temporary suspension of the plan to annex Palestinian lands and extend Israel's sovereignty over them. The Palestinian leadership sees this step as torpedoing the Arab Peace Initiative, the decisions of the Arab and Islamic summits, and international law, as well as an aggression against the Palestinian people and a neglect of the Palestinian rights and sanctities, first and foremost Jerusalem and the independent Palestinian state according to the borders of June 4, 1967.
Iranian health authorities confirmed 2,625 new COVID-19 cases this Thursday, taking the total number to over 336,000. Health Ministry spokesperson Sima Sadat Lari also reported 174 COVID-19 fatalities, pushing the death past 19,000. Meanwhile, 3,971 patients are in a serious or critical condition, while over 292,000 have recovered from the virus. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization is fighting the ongoing desert locust infestations in East Africa, which pose a threat to people's livelihoods and food security. Significant progress has been made in a number of countries, especially in Kenya, where just a few of the 29 counties that were infested in February this year still have locusts today. According to the FAO, the threat of possible reinfestation towards the end of the year calls for careful and continuous surveillance. From the beginning of January up until early August, the infestation of over 600,000 hectares across the East Africa region has been brought under control, with estimates that over 500 billion locusts have been killed in the entire region. Kenyan health authorities offered an update on COVID-19 cases this Thursday.
With regards to our COVID-19 statistics today, 650 people have tested positive out of a sample size of 6,768 samples, all collected within the last 24 hours. It now brings the total number of positive cases to the country to 28,754. Of these cases, 633 are Kenyans, whereas 17 are foreigners, 391 are male, and 259 are female.
And Kenyan health authorities also provided an update on the COVID-19 death toll and the number of recoveries since the outbreak of the pandemic in the country.
We are happy to inform you that 490 patients have recovered from the disease, of which 308 are from the home-based care program, whereas 182 have been discharged from various hospitals. And so our total number of recoveries is 15,100. And we continue to extend our appreciation to our healthcare workers who have made this great achievement possible. And on a sad note, 4 patients have succumbed to the disease, bringing our fatality count to 460. We do continue to extend our sincere condolences to the families and friends of those who've lost their loved ones.
Opposition figures in Mali continue to demand that President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta step down, claiming this is the only solution to the ongoing political crisis.
Today, there is unspeakable repression followed by hasty judgments that we cannot accept. Today, there are political detainees from our ranks, and we do not intend to enter into any discussion until they are released outright. No provisional release, but a definite release. There have been killings in this country, 23 deaths, and today there is no indication of the perpetrators, sponsors, and accomplices. This is unacceptable. In the absence of legal sanctions, today, administratively, we should have been told who is responsible, who gave the order, and who is in accomplice. As long as this is not done, we will not be able to enter into any kind of discussion. We have indicated that we are not refusing to meet with Mr. Keita, but that we will meet with him to discuss only the conditions of his departure.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Laura Palmero. Thank you for watching.